If you've never heard of the White Rim Trail, you likely haven't spent much time on a mountain bike or in a Jeep in the southwest of the United States. The trail is an iconic undeveloped loop through Canyonlands National Park. It's about 100 miles over mostly double-track terrain. It's rocky enough to warrant a mountain bike, but it can also be driven with a high-clearance 4x4 vehicle. While some riders do it in a day, most opt to do it over 4 or 5 days to soak in the magic of the spot. Our plan was simple: spend 4 days in the desert riding bikes, swapping stories, and connecting with our friends. We had tried a similar trip a few years ago over Thanksgiving, but a big storm system rolled in and snowed on our parade, forcing us to bail on the trip and go skiing instead. This year, we were determined to make White Rim finally happen, and our friends Laura and Tanner secured our permit for nearly 2 months earlier in the year to avoid any bad weather. As the group converged on Moab, Utah, from the east, west, north, and south, we each encountered some form of frozen precipitation, making our travel slow and forcing us to reconsider whether we can make the trip happen. We arrived to an overcast but dry downtown Moab to drop off the dogs at the kennel, as dogs aren't allowed on the White Rim Trail. After a quick breakfast, it had started to rain in town, but with the sun forecast to come out the next day, we were hoping to push through and get started on our adventure. But when we arrived at the start of the trail, which was at a higher elevation than town, 2 to 3 inches of snow had fallen and turned the road into a peanut butter mixture. We collectively decided to bail on the trip and started planning out how we'd spend the next 4 days together. Where was the closest dry and warm place? We needed to wait to retrieve the dogs from the kennel until the afternoon, so we went for a quick hike at a lower elevation. Then something magical happened. The sun came out for 30 minutes. And suddenly, the group's mood changed and we collectively decided to rally. We hurriedly packed up the truck, did some car shuttling, and pedaled down into the canyon. Because of our late start, night fell halfway through the ride to the first camp, so we donned our headlamps and picked our way through the dark. A few minutes after we had gotten into our tents, the wind started to howl. We later learned gusts hit 60 miles per hour. With a surprisingly minimal amount of damage to our tents, we weathered a sleepless night and questioned why we had made the decision we did. When the sun eventually rose, the wind died out. We were able to get a few minutes of shut-eye before getting out of our tents to start our first full day in the canyon. From this point forward, we had 3 glorious days of pedaling, sharing stories, and cooking meals together. Heather and I often feel guilty for not staying in better touch with our friends. But our lives get in the way, and we sometimes go many months without a word from the people we call our closest companions. With all the technology in today's hyper-connected world, we slip into feeling that we should speak at a greater frequency. The comparison between how easy it should be to stay connected to our friends versus the reality of how infrequently we actually talk to each other tends to bring us guilt. At some point on this trip, somewhere in between the sleepless night in the wind and the glorious dance party on the way out, it dawned on me. The guilt we feel for not staying better connected in our day-to-day lives is unfounded. As a group, we don't need to constantly know what each other is doing. We don't need to send memes to each other at all hours to communicate the bonds that we have. As a group, we show each other that we care by prioritizing spending a few uninterrupted days with each other. We drive through the night, tell our bosses we're sick, and scrounge together just enough gear and gas money to make the trip happen. While we may not know what each other ate for breakfast each day, when we're together, we are present, and we make more than enough memories to last us until we're able to meet up again. We recount stories of adventures past, each time with a few new details that go into our collective memories. We sometimes even start planning out the next adventure. We're so glad that we stuck through the wind, rain, and snow, and finally made our white rim dream happen. Watching the sun dance on the canyon walls while picking up where we left off with our goofball group of friends was just what we needed. Until next time.